Sharks, spiders, snakes, and Obama. Now, everyone knows why we should all be very, very afraid. Now, it's only taken a few months and several years and this week's headlines for us to understand exactly what the stakes are, and I'll get back to that a little bit. But again, on a humorous note, to that little one and to several others that I've adopted along the way, I am Aunt Zan, and everybody needs an Aunt Zan. Because the myth from the Democrats is that everyone needs an Uncle Sam. But the difference between Aunt Zan and Uncle Sam is that Aunt Zan gets to choose which unfunded liability she picks up. But Barack Obama's Uncle Sam pays for everything. Now, so those are some humorous thoughts to get us started off. And when thinking about our time here today and talking with Mindy about how to bring some inspirational remarks to you, my task was to bring some facts and figures and some numbers and some data. And so I'm going to share a bit of that. If it's dry, I apologize in advance. But on a personal note, I am humbled and honored to serve as your Federation President. I serve at your pleasure, and I serve for you. I serve for over 2,000 fellow Republican women who are members of clubs across this state. 57 clubs are organized around, and I'm going to get back to that just a little bit. And I should explain, I wanted to make sure it came early in my remarks about the reason that I was a little bit late joining you. I wanted to participate in every moment of today. So I went to get my car fixed yesterday, and then the light came on today. So I had to go back by the car place to have them address my situation so that I could come here safely with you today. And again, that will come back at the end of my remarks about how you and I and women all over must tackle our days and our weeks and our months because it is what we do. We have to manage our days. We manage the affairs of our families, of our lives, of our businesses, of our friends. Sometimes we help them. You manage the affairs of your club, and we must manage the affairs of our government by electing good folks. Now here are some facts and figures. More importantly, our website is ncfrw.com. If you do not check it regularly, then please write it down and visit there soon. That's our state federation, ncfrw.com. And we are 61 years and counting. The National Federation is nfrw.org, and they are 76 and counting. So we celebrated some wonderful milestones last year. In the state of North Carolina, and many of you know this if you have grown up here, many of you know we have 100 counties, an even round 100. Many people have joined us in our state because if you look at population numbers and you check census data, North Carolina has about 9.9 million people right now, and we're the 10th largest state in the country. And we're gaining on the other two that happen to be in the 9th and the 8th positions. And so soon, we're probably going to be 7th largest, and we'll be back talking with each other about some of these things. But in those 100 counties, and where do we stand? Thankfully, we have a Republican governor and a fabulous lieutenant governor. We have 8 more members of our Council of State for a total of 10. When you add Commissioner Troxler, whose home county we're visiting right here, he's probably on a tractor just north of here, of this place. And when you add Labor Commissioner Cherie Berry, who is the longest serving statewide council state member, that's 4 of the 10 that represent the Republican Party. Of course, The other 10 include Elaine Marshall, Janet Cowell, Beth Wood, June Atkinson, Wayne Cooper, and what's his name? Excuse me, Roy Cooper and Wayne Goodwin. There you go. 5 of those 10 are women, and 1 of those 5 are Republican women. Now, I happen to believe that Republican women are really, really, really good representatives, and so we certainly celebrate that. But I was looking at other facts, other figures. In our 13 congressional districts, we now have 9 of 13 that are Republican. 4 Democrats. Of those 9 Republicans, 2 are Republican women, Renee Elmers and Virginia Fox, who I share often represents all of North Carolina. Virginia does such a fabulous job on the behalf of her 5th district, which some of you may live in, but she does such a fabulous job. She also represents the rest of North Carolina, so we are very thankful for Virginia Fox. The Supreme Court of North Carolina has 7 justices, 4 of whom are Republican and 3 are Democrat. Of those 4, 1 currently is a Republican woman, your very own Barbara Jackson. The Court of Appeals has 15 judges, and of those 15, 7 are Republicans. Of those 7, 2 are Republican women, 2 that you've worked very hard for in the past, Anne Marie Calabria and Donna Stroud. Now, many of you are following carefully all of the developments with our ballot this year. And in fact, the ballot is not even quite set yet. But around September 5th, you're going to be able to visit the State Board of Elections website, and you're going to be able to look up yourself and find your ballot that has all of the folks that will be on it for you to pick from. And I certainly encourage you to do that simply because you're going to need to tell your friends how to do so as well. You'll have to tell them how to go find their ballot, research the issues, so that they know all of the choices that are presented to them. In some brief review, I was able to determine that about 270, let me go back to Superior Court judges first. There are about 96 Superior Court judges, most of whom, there are several senior resident Superior Court judges, and about 13 of those 96 appear to be Republican, and I believe 3, one of whom is from Guilford County, Susan Bray, I believe, is a Superior Court judge. Out of 270 district court judges, 93 appear to be women, and less than 10 of those are GOP women. So we have some work to do in those areas, but it gets a little bit better when you look at registers of deeds. Apparently 79 of the 100 registers of deeds are women, 21 are Republican women, and in the clerks of court, we have 100 of those too. 57 of those are women, and less than half at this time are Republican women. Now, here's some really, really good numbers that y'all are familiar with, because you may not meet a judge. As the judges in the room would say, we hope you don't meet the judge, right? Because that means you have to see them there. But we see a lot of our state representatives and our state senators. There are 120 state representatives, only 27 of which are women. 13 of those are our Republican women. Avila Brown, Conrad, Howard, Hurley, Johnson, Martin, McElrath, Presnell, Samuelson, Schaefer, Stevens, and Turner. And based on personal decisions, not all of those will be returning in the fall. So we'll see, once the election is done, how many reps remain. There are 50 state senators, and 10 of those are women. And I like the odds here. 5 are Republican women, and the other 5 are Democrat women. But we have Senators Behringer, Harrington, Kravick, Randleman, and your very own Trudy Way from Guilford County. Now, in your local area, many of you know and have helped to get elected or are currently campaigning for your local county commissioners, your town council members, school board members. But I think that we would say that we are definitely underrepresented in terms of the population, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that in a second. But I want to underline, lest anyone misconstrue my remarks, that I always, as a Republican, I always demand and wish for the most qualified candidate. And therefore, it doesn't matter at times if it is a man or a woman, I want the most qualified candidate. And that is a great contrast from the other party, who simply fulfills seats and spaces at times to elect or have representation. So we're always on the hunt for qualified and very, very interested citizens who can serve us. Now, in your local area, you should think about possibly running yourself or finding someone who you can influence to consider running. It's been stated earlier and previously that we're very busy. Women are busy. Women are involved in so many things. And it may not be that someone thinks they have the time, or that they have the qualifications, or that they have the ability to run. And sometimes all they need is a little encouragement from you, an involved Republican woman. If you were here today, then you know well enough that this was the most important place to be, not necessarily at the football game. And not that there's anything wrong with football games, but there isn't a lot of public policy discussion going on at the football game, at least not most of them. Now, about our demographics, 35 counties have majority Republican registration. And I'd like to say that we've come a long way in about 10 to 12 years. Because in 2002, the top number we could stretch and get was 27 counties. So in about 10 years, one census cycle, we have now become majority Republicans, registered Republicans in 35 counties, which is a good mark. And in fact, when reviewing the numbers, I wanted to note that there are 4 counties that are so close to parity or majority that if you know anybody there and you can influence them before October 10th, which is the absolute deadline to register to vote this year in North Carolina, thanks to our majority Republican legislature passing voter ID changes. If you know anyone in these counties, you should encourage them to get right out there and to get registered right away. In Burke County, we're about 500 voters from becoming majority Republican. In New Hanover County, it's about a 2,000 vote difference between the Republicans and the Democrats. And in Pender County, it's only about 350 voters, which is not that many in Pender County. The last one is a stretch, and I think it's Yancey County. I think Yancey County it's a smaller county, but it's that close. And if they could find 800 motivated mountain Republicans to go sign up before October 10th, they could become majority, and then we would be talking about other figures. Now, I share all of this, and it's a lot to keep up with. Your eyes are beginning to glaze over. Look at your eyes. Look at your eyes. No, they're not. You're very interested. You really are. Now I get to tell you this, that in some counties, unaffiliateds have overtaken Republicans. So our issues and our challenges involve not only trying to become the majority in a number of counties, but also combating the unaffiliated trend in some larger counties, including my own Wake. I live in Wake County, and in Wake County, unaffiliateds outnumber Republicans. And in several of the larger counties that we could name, that same thing is true. So there are some challenges there. Now, the bottom line here that you need to take away is that all 100 counties have majority female registration. In every county in North Carolina, there are more women registered to vote than there are men. So if only women voted as a percentage of their registration, women might win, which gets back to recruiting good candidates and qualified candidates. That comes as a surprise to most people, I think. Is that a surprise to you?
No.
Okay, and one of the things that I definitely wanted to share are some of the demographics about North Carolina. And so I was listening to Rush Limbaugh, and I'll keep what he had to say for a second. But first, I wanted to share a little bit about what the Gallup polling organization has reported very recently. If you go to their website, it's actually probably less than 2 weeks old. But since 2008, and I'm not going to get into the teaming of this, I'm going to tell you to go find it at gallup.com. It's readily available and it's very interesting. But in 2008, the Democrat Party was registering approximately a 10% advantage. When they polled people, people identified with the Democrat Party 49% of the time, and they identified with the Republican Party 39% of the time. So in a year where we didn't yet know that Barack Obama had won our state by 14,000 votes, who are those people? In that year, there was a 10-point advantage for the Democrat Party. But in recent polling, the numbers, if I can find them here, are much closer. I believe it's 43 and 41. So the Republicans have basically, or identification, I should say, with the public in a public opinion poll. Those numbers have tightened significantly, so that now as we approach the 2014 cycle and also as we approach the 2016 cycle, North Carolina is truly a battleground on which we have to make our case that our candidates and the qualified candidates that are presented to you are better in every case than the Democrats. Now, I also plucked out of the headlines, because of the unfortunate developments that have been occurring, I plucked out of the headlines a sampling of the fact that more people now are interested in the United States becoming involved in military action. And that is a trend away, but I cannot help but think that the average person has tuned in just a bit and will tune in more and more and more before the election, because when we do see some of the headlines, and they've been mentioned, I'm not going to repeat them at this point, when the events, I think Olga said it, Olga, where are you? When Olga said that your daughter was unaware of the headlines, which are horrid, it shows that we have a ways to go in terms of educating people. But at the same time, I think people are tuning in based on that last article. Now, I'm going to get back to Rush and my favorite pollster at this point when I can find his remarks. Hold on just a moment. Did anybody happen to see him or listen to him yesterday? You might have heard this again. Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. I'm sorry. I take it back.
My daughter knew, but yes, the others didn't.
Her daughter probably has Twitter going right now, so she knows what's going on. Thank you. I'm sorry. Her students, yes. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention another site for you to check in addition to Gallup.com. It's called electionprojection.com. Election Projection is a site that is an amalgamation of polls and surveys from all over the country, and it's all political. It's run by someone who is a cousin of a friend of mine. His name is Scott Elliott, and Scott has done a fabulous job throughout the last several cycles in terms of analyzing many polls and putting the raw facts out there. He makes analysis based on the real data. He doesn't just use Gallup, or he doesn't just use PPP or something else. He uses a statistical model that really puts things together, and it's very interesting. You all, as close observers, should go and check that out, electionprojection.com. But yesterday, my favorite pollster, Rush Limbaugh, reminded us that polls are not really reports of public opinion. They are the shaping of public opinion. And I said, thank you, Rush, because we do need to remember that. He also shared, and I'm kind of following something someone else said about the fact that Republicans are seen as, now by the way, stay seated. This is going to make you angry. You might want to jump out of your seat, but stay seated, please. He said Republicans are seen as intolerant, they lack in compassion, and they are stuck in the past. Yes. The lady said exactly the opposite. And specifically, the intolerance piece, well, that's a shame. The lack of compassion, no. America and Republicans, as a percentage of our numbers, give to charity in larger numbers than our counterparts. And the stuck in the past, I take exception to that. I got Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram going right now. How about you? Did anybody take a picture yet? Get your phones out. Get your phones out. Go, somebody take a picture. And actually, if you raised your hand and said you took a picture, put your hand down. Those of you who didn't take a picture are the ones that need to whip out your phones and take a picture so that you will be more skilled by the time Election Day comes. He also said yesterday that Democrats are trying to win the game, but Republicans are trying to get a first down. And I thought that's pretty good. If you think about it, we need to be thinking about how to win the game and not just how to win the next play. He also encouraged us to be inspired, as political correctness is nothing new, and bias against conservatives is not new. The establishment did not like Ronald Reagan either. And you referenced my niece named Reagan. Well, you know where she got that name, right? So I'll throw in that little story really quickly. Some of you have heard it. I apologize in advance. So when she was going to 4-year-old kindergarten, there was another kid in the class named Reagan. So my sister had to have the first time discussion at her early age of why did you get named Reagan? And so she said, you were named after President Ronald Reagan. He was a very good president. And my niece, 4 at that time, who knew that Aunt Zan worked for President Bush, said, better than George Bush? So anyway, she's named well, and she wears it well. Rush said we do not need to be discouraged. We need to be inspired and encouraged. Our piece of the demographic pie and our audience is the majority of people. People that love America. People that appreciate the rule of law. People that would like for their family to get ahead by virtue of hard work and accomplishment and achievement. Rush said yesterday that it is the majority of people and it's waiting to explode. And he said that's the only way that he remains very positive. We are simply absent leadership. His words, not mine. Think about the fact that our president has declared a war on coal, a war on fracking, and a war on obesity. He has no plan, but he has a pen and a phone and a putter. Now, one of the last things that I'd like to share with you as I bring my thoughts to a close is that also ripped out of the headlines was a very interesting article about what's going on with young people. And I'm going to read a couple of snippets to give you the essence of this rather than paraphrasing. For some teenagers, wearing last season's jeans will always be unthinkable. But a growing number consider texting On a dated smartphone, even worse. This whole article, which I will happily provide and we can email around, it details that technology has supplanted clothing as the #1 interest for young people. That they would rather have the newest smartphone and still wear their ratty jeans. Say again?
As long as they're Wranglers.
Please know that Mary's family has not adopted this particular thought yet. They're still stuck on it. One 16-year-old said, clothes aren't as important to me. Half the time I don't really buy any brands. I just bought a pair of fake Doc Martens because I don't really care. She spends more on technology because she likes to stay connected. And if you think about that, they do remain connected. So where does that leave us, you and I, if we are not connected to this digital world? If you are not on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Snapchat, Kik, Pinterest, Instagram, Tumblr, and I took a picture before I started my remarks of Olga speaking, and I posted it on Instagram, and it has received several likes while we have been here talking. Additionally, I have tweeted earlier this morning, maybe while driving, don't tell anyone, I'll tell you what I'm driving
That's
so you know
against the
that,
law.
so that you can stay out of my way. I'm just kidding, it's a joke. But I tweeted earlier, and I tweet regularly about various topical information, and in this period of time, we've been retweeted about that topic, that subject, that interest matter. And so I would ask you simply to think about the following things. We are doing everything we can do. We feel at times overburdened, oppressed, out of time, out of energy. It appears as if the deck is stacked because the press's message is relentless and constant against us. Say it is true.
Yes.
And we must do a better job communicating both at a large level and at an individual level. We must do a better job at communicating our principles and what is important to us. Because if we do, we win the day. We definitely win the hearts and minds of our friends, of our low information voter acquaintances. We win the hearts of those who can see through some unfortunate and tragic recent headlines. We can convince them that we have been right about several things, even if they voted for Obama, they could be convinced not to vote for whatever's next. But ponder these items, and again, I apologize if you've heard this before, but in your country today, John Kerry is your Secretary of State. Samantha Power is praising Hanoi Jane at the UN. Although I have to give her props because she did have a stronger statement recently than her president. Al Gore invented the internet but was too busy with massage therapists to help out with Barack Obama's website. Y'all can laugh at that. We live in the land of Anthony Weiner and Elliot Spencer, but we also live in the land of Billy Graham, George Beverly Shea, and Cliff Barrows. We live in the land of Charlie Sheen and the land of Charles Krauthammer. We live in the land of the Kardashians and the land of the Duggars. We live in the land of Jay-Z and Beyonce, but we also live in the land of Dr. Ben Carson. And it is because of the fact that our future, which rests in those 16-year-olds who cannot yet vote, or 18-year-olds who will vote, or 21-year-olds who accidentally voted for the Democrat ticket because it seemed a cool thing to do at that time. But those young people are one day going to have enough information to make their own decisions, and until they do, we're responsible for trying to step out and speak out, step up and speak up, and communicate one at a time, two at a time, three at a time. And ladies and gentlemen, we have to engage in the present and the future. We cannot allow, simply because we do not know how, we cannot allow for others to make the message loudest. We have to allow and make our message heard. And so that might mean learning a few new things and sitting with a friend and getting a little tutorial. And if you just want to pick one of those things I mentioned, pick one, pick two, pick three, like John Fairclough. Pick five, like Mary Carter. Pick several things that you can use to help amplify the message. Because if you don't, I already know where you'll be. Did anybody get a picture of it? No, you were too busy clapping. Tina, take a photo.
You need a larger red line through her face.
That's okay. She was chatting with a friend. Thank you very much.
I know all about it. It really is. You need a thicker line through Hillary's face. It's not big enough.
I'm really tall, so I like to remove it from the stand because I notice everybody is pretty much shorter than me around here, except for Larry.